Hello everyone, this is Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield from Transport Evolved with another thought of the day. But before I get onto that, I've got two very important things I want to say to you. Firstly, thank you so much to all of you who've engaged and joined in the discussion this week on the Transport Evolved YouTube channel. It's been great to have so many positive comments and so much great feedback and some really adult discussion going on between different people in the YouTube channels. And that is really nice because if you go on YouTube at all often, you will discover that there's also lots of name calling going on, but not on my channel. So thank you. That is brilliant. I'm going to keep doing these because they seem to be popular, and I'm going to try and keep them short in length. Which brings me to number 2. As you know, today is Friday, and Friday is normally the day that we release our TEN, Transport Evolved News show. It's our sort of 10-13 minute show where we discuss the top 10 or 11 stories of the week, and I tell you about them. It actually takes quite a lot of time and energy to produce that show because I do it all myself. I write the script myself. I then have to set up a green screen. I then have to film it. I then have to edit it, get all the B-roll and everything in from all the automakers and produce it and push out to the internet. Now, that normally is a day's work, sometimes a day and a half, and I normally do that on a Friday. But yesterday we had another explosion in an ongoing family crisis that has been happening on and off for the past 6 years. And in the last couple of months, the last sort of 6 to 8 months has been pretty much an almost continual thing. And so that's taking up a lot of my time and a lot of my attention. And I can't be in 2 places at once. So family health comes first, unfortunately. So I've not been able to produce a video for today for 10. I'm sorry. I will do my best to have one for you for next week, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing today's thought of the day. And I want to talk to you today about the Chevrolet Bolt EV, or the Opel or Vauxhall Ampera-e, as it would be called in Europe. Because this week we heard from GM that it doesn't intend to produce a right-hand drive version of the Chevrolet Bolt EV or even the Ampera-e. And the reason being that it costs too much money, and GM is not convinced that the Bolt EV will have enough appeal in right-hand drive markets where it would be sold. And by that, of course, we're inferring the United Kingdom, Ireland, and probably markets like Japan and Australasia, so Australia and New Zealand. Now, I think this is based on previous sales figures for the first generation Chevrolet Volt, which was sold in the UK both as the Chevrolet Volt and the Vauxhall Ampera. It was also sold in Australia as the Holden Volt. So none of those markets did particularly well on sales for multiple reasons. First of all, the car didn't meet buyers' tastes. Certainly in the UK, people like hatchbacks, but they like them smaller and slightly more practical. It was a very big American car, and it felt very big and American. And driving it down small country lanes, I felt big. And I mean, I used to own a first generation Volt, so I can speak with authority on this one. I know that in Australia, it wasn't that popular either because it didn't fit in with, the predilection there for much more practical vehicles that can cover long distances without any issues. And of course, the Volt, was very much a city car, and you've got big distances between the major cities in Australia. But I think that was a failure also, not just because of the styling of the vehicle, but the way the car was marketed. It wasn't really marketed in the UK. It wasn't really marketed in Australia. And it was kind of treated very much like a compliance car in Europe. Or outside of the US, actually. And so I'm wondering if GM is basing its decision not to make a right-hand drive variant of the Bolt or the Ampera-e on previous tainted sales records, which it helped kind of perpetuate. They became a self-perpetuating myth. People didn't want to buy them. They weren't really sold very much, but they were also not sold actively by the brands in Europe, the GM brands in Europe. And GM said, we don't think there's a market for a 200-mile electric car. And effectively, that's GM's loss because we know from the pre-orders for Tesla Model 3, lots of Brits have signed up for that. Lots of people really eager to get their hands on the next generation Nissan Leaf when it comes out in the UK. Lots of people very keen to get, the Volkswagen electric car when it comes out, the new one with longer range. And 200 miles in the UK is enough to go in certain parts from coast to coast, east to west. It's not quite enough. I used to live in Bristol. My mum is up in Norwich. It wouldn't be quite enough for me to get there in one single charge, but it's certainly better than the 5-6 charges that I used to have to do on my Nissan Leaf to make that trip. So I think GM is kind of screwing the pooch quite a lot on that one. If you live in the UK or you live in another right-hand drive market, I want you to tell me in the comments below if you would like the Bolt to come to your country, either as the Bolt or as a rebranded vehicle. And if you like the styling, if you like the price, if you think that would be better, for example, than a Model 3 in terms of practicality because it's a hatchback rather than a sedan, or if you think GM's right, that nobody would buy their cars. I think GM is shooting itself in the foot, and I think time will tell. I think GM will lose out. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Again, I'm sorry for there being no 10 today. As you can tell, my brain is a little frazzled because of everything that's been going on. So I'll try and have a good weekend. I hope you do too. I'm going to be all hands on deck this weekend, helping the family crisis hopefully ease down a bit. And I hope to see you back on Monday. Don't forget, you can support us on Patreon, www.patreon.com/Transport Evolved. Every dollar you can give is gratefully received. The more money we bring in, the easier it is for me to find other people to help out with the site and the content, which means when stuff like this happens, I can actually afford to pay somebody to step into my shoes and take over for a bit. So anything you can do will really help. Have a great weekend, and until next time, keep evolving.